for today. Our next speaker today is Dr. Jesus Mesa Morales. He was born in Caracas, Venezuela, and is nationalized in both Australia and Spain. He has been traveling globally in the last 2 decades to accumulate experiences as a Spanish teacher, and has worked at universities in Australia, Bulgaria, Poland, Iran, Latvia, Spain, etc. He has 3 master's degrees in the fields of philosophy, linguistics, applied international studies, and a doctorate in Spanish from the University of Salamanca. He is currently pursuing 2 postdoctorates in philosophy of education and in the social sciences. Additionally, he is pursuing a postgraduate diploma in grammar teaching, which will be completed between spring and summer of 2023. Dr. Morales will be speaking to us today on the introduction to the teacher's opinion and attitudes towards teaching and learning Spanish in the Bahamas. Dr. Mesa Morales.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the presentation. I just need the permission to share my screen.
It will be given to you. You are the co-host. You may go ahead.
Thank you. No, it's not available yet. Okay, let me try again.
Try it again first, please.
Okay, done.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon again. And yes, actually the word that I'm coming today to present is introduction to the teacher opinion and attitude toward teaching and learning Spanish in the Bahamas. As you said, I have been working as an assistant professor of Spanish at the University of the Bahamas from the last year. And my intention basically was to understand a little bit more about what is happening with the Spanish teaching and the Spanish learning in the country. No? So basically the objective that I have assumed to do this first introduction, I need to highlight this because I don't have still total conclusion. This is just a first approach that I do to the subject. But the objective that I have initially assumed is carry out the initial diagnostic on the situation of the Spanish teachers in the Bahamas. The idea is to know more in depth and with a scientific basis, the current status of teaching Spanish in this country. The second objective that I consider is to know a little bit more about the profile of the teachers in the schools, primary and secondary schools in the Bahamas, at university level, to know their opinion, their attitude toward the class, their training, their experience and perception when they teach, and more information about this topic. No? And somehow also I pretend to create a positive impact with this result in order to motivate new studies and to foster somehow the creation of a research line into the Spanish languages in the Bahamas. Why? Because as you know, the name of Bahamas come actually from Bahamar. That is the way how the antique Spanish people who arrived to America with Christopher Columbus in the 1492, they refer to describe this low tide and the shadow sea with the small dip, you know, the water without too much deep. So also the location of the Bahamas is surrounded by important Spanish-speaking countries. And I personally consider that we should have a better approach to the foreigner language Bahamas, and basically because the Bahamas depends of the tourism, and also because it could be important for the international relation with the neighbor around the country's neighbor around the Bahamas. So I did some contextualization, but I will skip because I'm talking in Bahamas, but basically it's about the situation of the education in the country. But I want to focus in the methodology that I did to carry out this work. I need to highlight that this is a work in process. I started last year and I expect to finish when my contract, my first contract of 3 years finish as well. I pretend to keep researching about this topic. But basically this.
Say what?
So.
You could understand him, I can't.
Are you talking with me? Well, I continue. So I started to do this work on the fall 2021. And I also prepare a survey to the Spanish teacher in the primary and secondary schools that was sent by email after getting contact from the Ministry of Education and the private school organization. So I prepare a questionnaire that consists of 40 questions and 28 closed questions and 11 open questions. And then I ask to them to send to the teachers, because for the privacy was not possible to get access to their email at this first stage. No? So I prepared this questionnaire in the Google questionnaire forms, and basically was sent during April and May of 2000 of this year. So the universe that the information, the data is not complete at all. So it's quite hard to know how many teachers we have in the Bahamas nowadays, but basically an approximate information is between 160 and 180 teachers in the private and the public schools. Basically, the information that I could confirm for this study is that there are 98 teachers of Spanish in the public schools. So that's why the numbers are not are approximated. So the sample that I was able to access was 24 teachers, and basically the information that I got from these 24 teachers was the following. So 92% of them were female, while 8 was just male. The age is distributed in this graphic that you can see. 33% of the teachers that I interviewed was between 18 years and 28 years old. 17% between 29 and 39, 21% between 50, and 25% between 51 and 61. I got also another 4 more older, I mean, 62, between 62 and 72 years old. The native language of these teachers was basically English, with 67% of them, and the nationality is predominant, the Bahamian nationality. So somehow, anyway, there are 21% of the teachers that I could interview was Cuban, 9 Peruvian, 4 Guatemalan, and 4 Jamaicans. When I ask them how many countries they have visited in their life, I found that 40% of them have never been in a Spanish speaker country. 38% have only visited one country, 33% 2 countries, 3% 10 countries, and 4% 4 countries. And for me, this is somehow an indicator of the information, of the knowledge that you have about the Spanish speaking community. As you know, Spanish language original from Spain, but then they spread in South American countries, Latin American countries. So it's quite important, according to my perception of the teaching and the development of the Spanish language worldwide, with the global Spanish language, it's quite important to understand the linguistic variation of the Spanish in different countries. Basically, Mexico is the most populated Spanish-speaking country in the world, with more than 120 million of Spanish speakers. And for me, for the interest of this research, it's quite significant to understand their perspective and their knowledge about the other countries. When I ask how long they spend in these countries, 65% has not spent more than 6 months. So basically, only 35% of the people who have visited other countries has spent more than 6 months over there. So when I ask about their preparation, their degree, the highest degree that they had is bachelor degree, 77%, 8% certificate, 4% high school degree, and 21% masters. When you cross this information of the highest degree with the nationality, we found that the people who has more preparation, considering that the master is more, somehow indicates more preparation than a bachelor, and also a bachelor more than the certification. So it's interesting that 80% of them has a master, and these people were from Cuba. And the 20% that have a master as the highest degree were from Jamaica. Basically, the people from Bahamas has lowers the degree of preparation. So that indicates, in spite of, I need to highlight that this is not a conclusion, but somehow this indicates that we need to foster more studies and more preparation to improve the quality of the teacher in the Bahamas. Talking about how many years they have been teaching in the Bahamas, basically 45% of them have been teaching for between 4 and 8 years, while the 25% of the people who have also interviewed was more than 15, between 15 and 20. Here you have the distribution of the data. No? In spite of, I try to get information from all the islands, I could basically got information from New Providence, from Nassau, which with the 50% of them teach in Nassau, here in the island of New Providence. Anyway, I was able to get access from teachers from Grand Bahamas, from Andros, from Eleuthera and Exuma as well, and the North Andros too. The distribution of the teacher, the profile of the teacher, the school, the institution where they teach, I was able to get access to 67% of these 24 teachers were teachers from the public schools, while 33 only from the private ones. The year of experience that they have teaching Spanish is basically between 4 and 7 years with 37%. Less than 3 years, 25%, and between 14 and 19 years, 17%. Also, the grade that they teach, what level they teach when they teach Spanish, this information was quite balanced, with the 42% of them were teaching at elementary schools, 29% in the middle school, and also 29% in the high school. The time that they spend teaching during the week, I need 202 hours per week. 46% of them teach between 1 and 2 hours per week, while 21% and 21% also even less than 1 hour, or between 3 and 4 hours. When you cross this information of hour per week and the kind of schools, you find that the public schools basically teach more between 1 and 2 years, 2 hours, while the private school apparently dedicate more time to the teaching. That could indicate also that the quality of the education of Spanish in the private school could be a little bit better than the public one. But this is not, I insist, this is not a conclusive position. No, this is just a first introduction. When I ask them if how many percent of the target language they use in the classroom, 63% of them respond that they use between 40 and 60%. That means that they use the English to control the class, to provide information about what they have to, instruction about what they have to do, but basically about 50% of the time they speak Spanish. When you cross this information with the schools, it's quite interesting that these people who respond 60%, 63% are quite equal between private and public schools. So basically, the people who spend more time teaching only in Spanish apparently is focused in the private school, while the people who speak only in English or less than in Spanish is basically in the public schools. Regards the performance as a Spanish teacher and the use of the material, I found that 92% of them normally use the book as a guide, but they adapt the material to the need of the group. And when you cross this information between private and public schools, you find that the private school, 100% of them are focused on adapting the book to the situation of the class. Some people from the public school just follow the book, or also some people from teachers from the public schools, they present the content, but they consider that their class is free and they don't follow the book. When I talk about what about the institution, the support of the institution, the school toward the Spanish, the teaching in Spanish, I asked, in the institution where I teach, is there an unified and shared criterion of what and how I should be taught effectively? This information, these results are not conclusive, but it's quite important to highlight that 50% of them are agree with this position. But I want to highlight that there are people who is strongly disagree in 0.25% and strongly agree in 12.5%. Some people also think that it's neutral. They have a neutral position, but yeah, it's okay. Also, when I was talking about how would you describe the professional quality of the Spanish teacher in the Bahamas, the people say that it's fit enough, basically, in the private school and the public schools. So in the public schools, some people think that it's very competent. They are quite proud of the quality of the teaching of Spanish in the public school, while in the private ones, they don't think this could be, they need to improve it. In another question that the questionnaire includes, do you think that in general Spanish students in the Bahamas are bad, regular, good, or excellent? So the general perspective that I perceive is that the student, the teacher considers that the students are regular. They are not excellent, but basically they are regular or good, while only the public ones consider them as bad. Talking about the model of language that you should use, remember that I highlighted the fact that there is an importance to know the different approaches, the different variation of the linguistic variation of the Spanish. 60%, 63% of the public school teachers respond that the model of the language that they should teach should be an Pan-Hispanic model, an international or a hybrid linguistic variety. While 18.5% of them consider that Mexican, Cuban, or Colombian linguistic variation should be the way how they should be the model what they have to teach. And also, which expression best fits for you when I'm talking about if the native Spanish teachers are the best or not? So they consider in the private school that 50% of them consider that native Spanish speakers teachers are better than the non-native Spanish, non-native teachers. While in the public school, this situation is not as agreed. So 69% of them consider that the teacher who speak their own language are better teachers. Something that I support, by the way, personally. So do you think it's necessary to increase the number of Bahamian teachers? The number of the Spanish Bahamian teachers? I strongly disagree in the private school, while absolutely disagree in 37.5% in the public school. Do you think teaching other subjects in Spanish should improve student learning? Some of them, 62% of them responded yes, maybe 50, 43, 44, maybe in the public school, and not sure, 25% in the private one. So I know that I have only 5 minutes more, but I want to also show, just to finish, that this is the kind of information that I have organized, and also there are open questions. In the questionnaire, there are open questions that I was not able to create a graphic to show them, but are quite significant. For example, the name of the specific study that they carry out to teach Spanish. As you can see, there is not a specific one. It's quite different. The different degrees. Also, the methodology that they use to give the classes. It's important to consider that the communicative approach is quite significant. There are a lot of communicative approaches, but it's also, there are not a specific way to teach, no? When I were asked about what is the difference in terms of quality of the Spanish education they receive in public and private studies centers, it's also interesting to read one by one these answers because are quite significant to understand a better situation of the teaching Spanish in the Bahamas. And yes, that's it. Basically, the information that I have been working about. And also, just to highlight the conclusions, it's not real conclusion, but more than observation. I need to highlight that there is not a definitive conclusion in this, because this is a work that I expect to carry out in the future. I also recommend to carry out this study throughout the country to improve the diagnostic and even include also the opinion of the student. But there is a ethics situation that we need to control also. So the result that I have found until the moment right now suggests that the Spanish in the Bahamas shows signs of acceptance and growth. There is a difference perceived between the language education and the teacher in private and public schools. I also advise to establish a comprehensive review of the teaching of foreign languages in the education systems and their impact in the economy of the country. And there is also need to thoroughly assess to the ethical attitude and belief of learning and teaching Spanish language as a second language in the Bahamas. And I also recommend to establish training courses for training teachers in Spanish. It should be foster language teaching, must focus on promoting a real intercultural skills in the use of the language. With this, I conclude. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for my strong accent, but I did what I could in the best way. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you very
Dr.
much.
Morales. Are there any questions?
Please, if there is any question, I appreciate if you can write it because it's better for me to understand written by spoken.
Dr. Massa Morales, there are no questions in the chat. And no voices are rising. We thank you very, very much for your presentation. And thank you all for being here. We invite everyone to have a beautiful weekend, and please listen out for future Research Edge forums. Thank you all so very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.